90 years ago, the Virginia Farm Bureau made our local farmers a promise to protect and preserve a way of life they work so hard to establish. Today, our insurance agents work to protect all Virginians, not just farmers. We want to keep Virginia, Virginia. More information is at farmbureauadvantage.com.
The remarkable soybean. From its oil, we get products like ink, candles, and paint. From its meal, we get a high-protein fiber used in foods and animal feeds. Natural soy is replacing chemicals and products you use every day. You can learn more about soybeans at vasoybean.com.
The year 2018 has not been good for dairy farmers. In fact, the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services recently verified that during the first 6 months of this year, Virginia lost an average of one dairy farm every 5 days. So why are farmers choosing to leave the dairy business? And what's the impact on farm families as well as the rural economy? We visit a dairy farm in Augusta County this week to learn the answers to those questions. We also have a report this week about growing sweet corn in Virginia, plus some tips about selecting the appropriate breed of farm dog. Those stories and more on this episode of Virginia Farming. I'm Jeff Hische. One of the most popular crops in summertime is sweet corn. Is there anything better than fresh corn right off the stalk? Dave Miller has the story from Caroline County.
Just 10 miles southeast of Fredericksburg, off U.S. Route 17, you'll find some of the sweetest corn you've ever tasted. Emmett Sneed has spent his life on the farm and knows sweet corn like the back of his hand. He grew up selling produce door to door in town while his father ran the family dairy farm. He bought his own property in 1980 and started raising produce.
Most places that grow sweet corn in a big way, like for a supermarket or wherever, canning, like to can, have a machine. They machine pick the corn, and it's a one-time pass, which creates a lot of waste. Now, corn is an unusual plant. It's a very productive and it's a high-end crop, and there's a lot of energy in this stalk. And so when the corn is first ready, we'll pick a corn 3 times. To give you an example, this corn right here is at its peak. So you snap it off the ear, and you shuck it down, and man, that thing's ready to eat. And if you don't believe it, it's even good raw.
Phoebe Jarvis grew up just down the road from Sneed's farm and has been working at the roadside stand for several months. She's served a lot of satisfied customers.
Most people buy like half a dozen. I'd say half a dozen would be a good number for a dinner of 2 people. Just once you start eating it, it's hard to stop. And a lot of people just are doing a lot of grilling in the summer, so it's convenient, easy, something you can do outside in the hot weather. Sometimes it's not very much fun to cook in the heated kitchen.
Raising a good crop of sweet corn starts almost a year before harvest, when pumpkins are ripe. Sneed plants a good cover crop in his fields to protect the soil from erosion over the winter and to build up nutrients. In the spring, he drills the corn seeds directly into the cover crop to prevent runoff into nearby creeks and the Chesapeake Bay.
So the second time we come across the field, we'll pick what I call the second ear, and that's on the same stalk. And see, if that was picked today, it'd be too soon. For most people, it's got an ear, and that's probably the way some ears would look in a grocery store or someplace where they picked everything at once. But in another 3 days, it would be filled to the tip and fatter and juicier right there. And when you bite into it, it would just squirt all over your face. Right now, it just kind of, it's kind of wimpy.
Sneed says his best land are his parking lots because parking areas bring in people, and people bring in money. The Sneeds operate a community-supported agriculture business that includes several hundred customers, and they work with neighboring farms to assemble a good variety of fresh produce.
You can definitely tell the taste difference, and you can see the difference. It's all fresh and crisp, and it's just delicious and entirely. Store produce often doesn't have any flavor. It'll be bland or mushy or just doesn't taste real. But you get stuff out here and it's got lots of flavor, and you can notice the difference for sure.
The Sneeds started their farm in 1980 and immediately broke it into 5-acre sites based on soil type. Sneed rotates his crop of corn, asparagus, pumpkins, and other produce around these fields. He says the key to delicious corn is to select the right variety. The older heirloom varieties, which haven't had their flavor bred out in favor of better shipping or storage capabilities, are his favorites. Sneed says heirloom mixed seed is more expensive but offers the best of yellow and white corn combined. He's named his own favorite variety, Sugar and Spice, and takes pride in raising a top-quality crop in small batches.
Of course, it's more work and more labor, and it costs more. But it's so much better and efficient use of the land, the crop, and resources that you put into growing the corn. So you got ready to roll, just about ready, and almost ready. But it's all corn, it's all good, and it's all yummy.
When Sneed's harvest is done, he lightly discs the soil to kill the weeds and then plants buckwheat and sunflowers to start the growing cycle all over again. They also bring in birds, bees, and especially more people to grow his farm tourism operation. It's a win-win-win for his farm, his customers, and the environment. In Caroline County, this is Dave Miller.
Thank you, Dave, for that report. The State Fair of Virginia is coming up soon, and farm families from all around the Commonwealth are expected to attend. Numerous segments of agriculture will be highlighted at the fair this fall, including livestock shows, horticulture contest, crop displays, and of course the giant pumpkin contest. Now, one thing you don't want to miss at the State Fair this year will be the demonstrations conducted by the Virginia Loggers Association. The goal of these demonstrations is to help the public understand the importance of forestry in the Virginia economy and how professional logging is helping to create sustainable forest. The dates for the State Fair of Virginia this year are September 28th through October 7th. Well, Virginia cattle producers know that when you're talking about quality beef, you need to be talking with chefs about how they prepare certain cuts of beef. Bob Cervera has the story from the American Angus Association.
When chefs demand beef on their menu, popular cuts often steal the spotlight. A visit to the Certified Angus Beef Culinary Center shows what they might be missing.
We're mainly focused on being creative and showing underutilized cuts that they can put on their menus to kind of, spread the word on, there's more than just a filet kind of thing. And then we also have a built-in meat lab in our facility where the groups go back and they hang out with our meat scientists for the day. And after that, they're charged and fully ready to taste some really awesome beef. So that's what we're here for.
Visiting chefs find economic benefits when applying those new ideas.
They test it out in their restaurants and they're able to change a menu option. They're able to save a couple dollars on their menu by switching a specific middle meat to an underutilized cut. And we get a lot of really cool emails talking about how an experience they had here was taken back to their restaurant or to their hotel, and now they're sharing it with their guests in their local area.
After handling a side of the best Angus beef, the pros convey what they know to their customers.
It's really important that they have a story to tell on their menu, we're realizing. So they like to be able to tell the story that they're using a cut of beef that's normally just put into hamburger or sausage, and we're using it as a center of the plate item, and they're getting a really great experience at this restaurant.
Chef Ashley says high-quality marbling drives any new cut's potential.
There's not a lot of utilization and creativity out there with beef unless it's coming from us. So it's really important that we take pride in what we do, and we take pride in where it starts, and where it starts is the most important.
I'm Bob Cervera.
Thank you, Bob, for that report. Dairy farms in Virginia are having a rough go of it in 2018. Continued low prices, an oversupply of fluid milk, combined with other factors, well, it's causing a lot of farmers to rethink their future in the dairy sector. That topic is coming up next during Ag Insights. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Jeff Ishii. This is Virginia Farming, and we are on a Virginia dairy farm this week. We can't wait to tell you where we are and actually who we're talking with today about a very important topic. But first, I want to share with you some statistics we recently learned about the Virginia dairy industry. Number one, the official beverage of Virginia is milk. It was so designated by the Virginia General Assembly in 1982. At the beginning of this year, Virginia had 586 dairy farms with 87,000 dairy cows. Virginia's dairy industry directly supports 16,000 jobs. That's a lot of people working because of the Virginia dairy industry. Milk is also Virginia's third most valuable agricultural commodity, generating $478 million in cash receipts to farmers every year. And finally, the top 5 counties in Virginia for dairy production are currently Rockingham County at number 1, followed by Franklin County, Pittsylvania, Augusta, and Washington counties. So those are some statistics we thought we'd share with you concerning the Virginia dairy industry. And it's my pleasure now to welcome to the program Mr. Kevin Phillips with North Point Farms in Waynesboro, Virginia. Kevin and 3 of your brothers, I believe, operate this farm, and you're also the immediate past president of the Virginia State Dairymen's Association. Thank you for inviting us to the farm, Kevin.
Well, thank you. Welcome to North Point Farm. We started here operating in the late 1800s, so we've been here well over 100 years. There's 3 of my brothers with me, and then we're fortunate enough now to have 4 of the next generation that have come back here, and they are also employed full-time at the farm.
Well, Kevin, this is truly a family farm, and as you said, a multi-generational farm, and I think that's fairly typical of most of the dairy farms we see around the Commonwealth of Virginia. They're passed on from generation to generation, and like your family, they've been milking cows a long time.
Yes, that's the beauty of it. You get to work with your mom and dad, and then you do it yourself, and then you get to teach your children and see how they excel. And it's very delightful to see the different aspects each family member brings to an operation.
Well, you've been dairy farming all your life, Kevin, but this year, 2018, I know has been what some would call a tumultuous year. It's been a year that has not been the best for Virginia dairy farms. Bring us up to speed on where we are now as an industry here in Virginia.
Well, it's been a very interesting, very challenging year. Most everybody is either at or under the cost of production. So we're seeing some people exit. Others are just eating into equity to stay alive. The biggest problem is we're climbing a mountain and we can't see over it right now. We don't know whether it's going to keep on going straight up. We don't know what it's going to look like when we hit the other side. And so the uncertainty of it makes it very challenging.
Uncertain, boy, it's a good word to use during these times. We recently contacted the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services office in Richmond, and they advised us that in the first 6 months of this calendar year, 2018, that we've lost 36 dairy farms around the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I thought about that, losing 36 dairy farms. That might not sound like a lot to some folks, but that is losing a dairy farm, 1 farm every 5 days. And that, in my personal opinion, that's a significant situation. Why are people electing to get out of the dairy sector?
Well, I guess the uncertainty of it. We do not know where we're going to land, and some of them that are getting out, I think, are using a different judgment. They're trying to get out before they eat up all their equity, so they have a little bit of money to live on. Others, we don't know nothing else. We've always been taught how to grow, how to produce, but we've never been taught how to exit. And that, to me, is going to be the next challenge, is for us to figure out how some of us are going to exit.
Well, exit the dairy sector.
Yes.
I don't want to imply that these dairy farms are going out of business. They're simply having their permits for milking cows withdrawn, and ultimately we hope and we pray that they will go into another segment of Virginia agriculture, whether it be cattle, poultry, wine, grapes. There are a lot of opportunities in Virginia agriculture these days. Of the farmers that you're talking with, what do you think they're looking for? What's the next step?
They're looking for something or other that they can make a profit, not work 100 hours a week and make a livelihood that's doing something good for their fellow men. So many things you do that we're not sure that is the best, but they're doing what they want to do to make everything good for the next generation and make a good living. The cost of health insurance right now is very prohibitive on a lot of dairy farms, and so there's a lot of people today that do not have health insurance because they can't afford it.
I want to go back to why some people are electing to get out of the dairy sector. I've heard a lot of different reasons: consolidation, consumer demand. Can you talk a little bit about consumer demand?
Well, in the Southeast, we've always been deficit of milk, but now we are doing a better job, taking better care of the cows, and so fluid milk consumption has drastically dropped. And a lot of that starts with the younger kids. And we have went to where we thought we could not feed any fat in the milk, whole milk, to kids in school. That's where we teach them how to drink milk, the nutrition value of it. And the last few years, the water, I call it white colored water because it has no taste. And if you don't have something that tastes good, you're not going to consume it.
Kevin, do you think, and we're talking with Kevin Phillips, former immediate past president of Virginia State Dairymen's Association. We're here in Waynesboro, Virginia at North Point Farm. Do you think that the consumer is, do you think they're trying alternatives to milk? And the label might actually say milk, but it never came from a dairy animal. Do you think there's some of that may be having an impact?
Oh, absolutely. They've done a good job of advertising, but it's not as healthy as whole milk. And so social media has played a huge part. Whatever's on social media is the Bible. And we know that very few people understand what whole milk is. Whole milk is 3.5% butter fat. We have never been able to market it at 3.5% fat. If we could sell a lot.
Talk a little bit more about consumer demand for other dairy products. My understanding is that when it comes to yogurt and cheese, the demand in that segment is excellent.
Yes, they love the yogurt coming up now with the drinkable yogurt. Cheese has been just booming, and there's new artistic cheeses that you can make. Believe it or not, the biggest one is butter consumption. They have finally decided that the margarine is not good for you. So butter consumption is, I read an article, is up to where it was 25 years ago as far as consumption of butter. So we're doing good there, but the fluid end that we are focused on in the Southeast was always deficit of milk, so we never built butter and cheese plants. We are now actively in the state of Virginia working to get a butter or a cheese plant to locate to our area.
So if we could bring in a big-time cheese manufacturing facility or Greek yogurt or something like that, that would be good for Virginia dairy farms?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, wow.
Because we have maybe, 5 or 6 processors of fluid milk left in the state. Milk moves a lot. A lot of milk in our area goes to North Carolina because they bring milk out of Pennsylvania into Virginia. And Virginia itself probably uses about all the milk that we supply. But when you go up north and bring milk down, you domino it down, is what they say. Because when you get down to Florida right now, they are really deficit of milk because of the heat stress on cows.
Kevin, we've talked a lot about the first 6 months of 2018, and it has not been a good year so far for Virginia dairy producers. What do you foresee for the next 6 months?
We need a win in the dairy industry. Something or another to prick morale up. It's just like a baseball or a sports team that goes 0 for whatever. As soon as you get that first win, morale will pick up. That's what we need in the dairy industry, is a morale booster. We thought we was going to see that. The mover prices had started moving up in April and early May, but now they've declined right back down. And so I see more of the same for the next 6 months of the year. And again, we cannot see over top of the mountain. It's just like driving your kids down the road and they say, when we gonna get there, Dad? We don't know.
Don't know. Lack of control, and it's always been that situation from my understanding with the Virginia dairy industry. The Margin Protection Program, this is a federal program that was rolled out by the USDA and the federal government, I believe over a year ago, and then they recently revised it to supposedly make it more attractive and more beneficial to the dairy producers. What are you hearing from the farmers about the MPP, the Margin Protection Program?
Well, it's a program set up for a dairy that is basically 200 cows and smaller. It is designed to help them compete with the bigger dairies. It is, when it was first rolled out, it was a disaster. They revamped it, and it's a Band-Aid for the smaller producers, but it's, in my estimation, it's done went too long before we put a Band-Aid on. We done about bled to death. And so they come into the Senate and the House bill, they're in conference right now. It didn't change it much. So again, it'll be a Band-Aid. It might help some of the small producers, but it's not a fix-all for sure.
Just a couple of minutes remaining in this segment of the television program, Kevin, but I wanted to ask your advice to your fellow dairy farmers. You've been a leader in the dairy industry for a number of years. This is a situation that I think most of them have never seen before. What would be your advice to those farmers?
Well, first of all, have faith in what you do. Sit down with the family, have a family conversation. Let them know where you're at. If you got younger kids, you just have to involve them in the finances and say, hey, this is where we're at. We owe X and we're worth X. Are you willing to lose more to hopefully make more? Or do we need to exit the dairy business before we lose our equity? And it is a challenge. There's no right or wrong answer. And you gotta have faith, and you got to take time. Don't work yourself to death. Mom and Dad, take time to be with your kids.
Take a vacation and go fishing every once in a while.
That's exactly right.
And then the phrase that you mentioned to me, it all boils down to risk management.
Yes.
You've got to manage that risk, and if the numbers don't work, they don't work.
That's right.
Thank you very much for talking with us and bringing us all up to date on 2018, a year in the Virginia dairy industry that has not been going well. We certainly hope and pray that our dairy farm families have a better second half of 2018. More in just a moment. This week we explore a new book on the selection and care of farm dogs. The title we are reviewing this week is Farm Dogs. It's a relatively new book, just published in 2016. Farm Dogs is a comprehensive breed guide to 93 different guardian dogs, herding dogs, and other examples of working dogs that are often found on farms. From the table of contents all the way to the index, author Janet Donner helps us to gain a deeper understanding of our canine friends, especially those that may be used by farmers for specific purposes. For instance, how do you choose the appropriate breed for your particular farming operation? Is it an Akbash? Is it an Australian cattle dog? Or perhaps a Jack Russell? This book offers an in-depth guide to the behaviors and temperaments exhibited by certain breeds of dogs. Farm Dogs is full of colorful photographs and numerous charts. It really helps people to understand some of the possibilities when it comes to choosing a dog for your farm. The book is 352 pages, softbound, and was published by Story Publishing. It's available from numerous resources. Our Pearl of Wisdom this week comes in from viewer Vera C. in Bristol, Virginia, who says, "He who knows he has enough is rich." That does it for our show this week. Have a great week, everyone. I'm Jeff Ishii for Virginia Farming. And now for your Ag Trivia question of the week, the answer when we return.
90 years ago, the Virginia Farm Bureau made our local farmers a promise to protect and preserve a way of life they worked so hard to establish. We want to keep Virginia, Virginia. Anyone can be a Farm Bureau member, and there's a local Farm Bureau in every county. More information is at vafarmbureau.org.
Virginia soybean farmers are hard at work growing soybeans to produce products you use every day. Candles, soaps, even crayons can be made from soybeans. Remember, when you buy soy, you're helping to support American jobs, the economy, and our nation's energy security.
And now the answer to your trivia question of the week. A, it is Augusta County that leads the state in annual sheep production.